Welcome back to Inside Houston. I'm your host, Shad Bogany. I'm talking with Toni Jackson, who's an attorney and an expert on affordable housing here in the Houston area. She works with Jones and Walker. Toni, I had a question in regards to tax credits. How the difference between 4% and 9%?
Okay. The difference, first of all, low-income housing tax credits are allocated to a state based on the population. So each state gets a certain amount per population in the state. The 9% credits are going to be a competitive credit. So developers actually have to apply for those credits, and they're very competitive. To give you an idea, when I first did my first tax credit deal in the early 90s, we actually received 55 cents on the dollar for the credits. And now, right before this last bust, we were having investors actually pay as much as $1.10, $1.15 per credit. So it's an incredible, it's a very competitive credit, and we see about 20 applications per every application that is awarded. The 4% credit is always combined with bond deals. And so what you see in terms of pure equity going into the transaction, a 9% credit is going to give you about 70% of equity into the transaction versus a 4% about 30%. So if you say, for instance, have a $15 million deal and it's a 9% deal, you're going to probably get about $10 million of credits to go into it and only have a $5 million loan. That's what allows your development to be affordable because you have equity going into the deal, real money. But if it's a 4% deal, that same $15 million deal would only get about $5 million of equity going into the transaction.
And tax credits is one way to try to provide more affordable housing in this city. Now, I want to tackle a couple of myths. Most people, these NIMBYs who come to these public hearings, because you got to have a public hearing to get this affordable housing in, they bring up that murderers and federal rapists and all these people are living criminals, federal, with felons, all living in these tax credits. Is that possible in a tax credit deal?
It is not. People want to believe, and those of us who are in the industry, you and I can't always even walk down the street and say, oh, that's tax credits versus that. What I can tell you is when I see a C property where an owner is not doing anything, I can tell you almost always there is no subsidy going into that development because that owner does not have to comply with anything and anybody. He can just be a crappy owner, absolutely a slumlord, holes in the walls, roaches around the floor, and just never actually answer to anyone. With tax credits, all of those things that you just said, the murderer, the criminal, every tenant has to have a background check, a criminal background check, as well as be income verified. And so, and there's a lot of other compliance that also goes with those tax credits. Like I mentioned earlier, Mr. General Electric or Berkshire or Verizon or whoever purchased those tax credits, they don't want their tax burden to be interrupted. So when they invest in these tax credits, that is a long-term investment, and the owner has to comply with not just that criminal background check and the income verification, but a lot of other compliance. So you're not going to get that. One of the other things that we always hear is people say the schools are going to go down, and we have not had any study to show that the schools have been overburdened or that the quality is going to go down. In fact, most studies show that when a development is built, it is generally pulling from people who are already right there in that area, in that community. They're just looking for a better place to live, a place that is going to be good and decent to live.
And also these tax credits have social services. There are after-school care programs, social services,
computer
urban league,
live-in, all kinds of things. Absolutely, absolutely.
One of the things that I really wanted to stress this in regards to tax credits, because everybody, you hear all this stuff about your home values. So I'm going to tell you from the realtor side, there's no study out there that shows that when you build a tax credit apartment unit next to a subdivision, that the home values go down. They don't go down. I can tell you, I had one built next to my neighborhood, and my values have gone up. There's no study out there. So when you hear people say the home values are going to go down, they're not going down. And it's a matter of myth. And that's why, Toni, I wanted you here. And I'm telling you from a realtor side that are selling homes in that area. Let's talk about the LAURA program. This is another way to try to get affordable housing into a neighborhood. I know you sat on that board for a while. Explain to the Houstonians here that's listening to Inside Houston how important the LAURA program is.
The LAURA program is very important. It was, started some years ago, and what the intent of the program was.
Well, hold on before you go into it. We have a tendency to talk
about
acronyms. So, what does LAURA stand for?
The Land Assemblage Redevelopment Authority.
All right.
I know. As soon as I was saying that, I was like, I did not say the explain that. Okay. But that is actually a board that is set up by the city, the county, and the school district because it is intended to bring those properties that have been tax delinquent for at least 10 years or more off of the tax rolls. The city of Houston has an enormous number of tax delinquent properties, and a lot of those tax delinquent properties are not properties that are homestead properties, meaning not your property that you live in the house.
Right.
It is a property that someone purchased for investment purposes, and then they've just let the taxes go. So the intent was to, when those properties came up for foreclosure, to actually bring those properties into LAURA. All of the taxing entities have signed off to say we will bring those properties in and then sell it back to a developer that's going to build single-family affordable houses. And that has worked well. Unfortunately, we have not gotten houses out as fast as we would like to. We still have to go through the foreclosure process. It's a statutory requirement. It is, and then we do go after properties again, like I said, that are investor owned. But we have gotten 200 plus new houses out there off the tax rolls, and then having people to own those homes and now pay taxes. So that's a real big deal. We have a lot of developers out there that have been very, instrumental in keeping that program running. Mayberry Homes has been a fantastic partner with that program. Even Houston Habitat for Humanity has been a big builder in that program. But it's important to get these properties off the tax rolls and then, roll them back out with homeowners who are then going to pay taxes. What the other part is, and I know that your show is going to explore this and help people with this, is us getting our potential home buyers ready to be home buyers, because everybody is not intended to be a buyer, or some people are reluctant to be a buyer because it's the unknown. They don't know what that is going to mean for them. What do I do? They don't have a landlord to call now. They're going to be responsible when the pipe bursts, or responsible for paying the taxes, all those things that somebody else did. And so we have to keep educating people so that they're ready to be homeowners.
Well, and to go along with the home ownership, if you are a renter, your net worth is $2,500. If you are a homeowner, it's 36 times more, almost $150,000. And I've seen several surveys by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac who talked about these difference in net worths. You build stronger neighborhoods, you build stronger schools. Everything works when you have a commitment in that community. And that's why home ownership is so important. The city of Houston has started trying to get these lots out, but more importantly, we need down payment assistance. We need people to realize that they can afford a home. A lot of these homes that are being built cannot be sold to investors. They're income restricted. You've got to make so much money. You can't make too much money. And so all of these things are important. In the LAURA program, I've worked with builders who have worked to make these programs work, but that's another avenue. So, because I want to give solutions to this affordable housing program also, Toni.
And you mentioned, this the down payment homeowners program is one of those programs that is going to be cut if we see major cuts in the CDBG and home funds. And so that, so it is important again for people to understand, when they say, oh, well, they're talking about something that doesn't impact me, that it does. Somewhere around there, it does impact you, and people need to understand how it impacts them.
Right. And, to continue on, it's just knowing somebody sharing the information with you. I've talked on to people that if health insurance goes away, your property taxes are going to go up because the hospital district draws from property taxes. So if they're losing money, your property tax just went up. All of this fits. It's a synergy, guys.
Right.
It's a puzzle. Everybody's got a piece in it, and it all comes together, and it all relates together as we move forward with affordable housing. Let's talk about FHA financing. How do you feel that's going to play a role in helping us with affordable housing?
Well,
and explain to us what FHA financing is.
FHA financing is the Federal Home Administration Program. It's one of the oldest programs out of HUD, and actually that program really is it really is about the down payment for your home. People again, say, oh, well, it's a subsidy. No, most of us have had an FHA loan at some point in our life. When you go to the bank to get a loan, they're normally going to offer you a 30-year loan.
Right.
However, if you go to get an FHA loan, they will offer you a 40-year loan with a lower down payment. And that makes a big difference for somebody that is trying to buy their home for the first time. You can even have FHA financing on the multifamily side. Again, and a lot of nonprofits and CDCs use this kind of financing when they're going to build multifamily. But it is simply a government program. And, and one of the things I have to say and interject this is we have to stop thinking that when someone says they're using a government program, that that's a negative, that that's a bad thing. And even when you hear the word subsidies, there are major companies across this country that are getting some kind of subsidy, that are using some kind of government program. We pay taxes for this reason, and so we should not feel that there should be some issue of shame because you have utilized a program that is benefiting you. And FHA financing does that when buying a home. It simply allows you to not have to get 20% to put down as a down payment, but you can get 10% down payment, a longer mortgage, and you can make it affordable and manageable until we hope will grow into that home and, with your job, with the home and everything, and be able to really better manage those payments.
I'm going to talk a little bit about FHA from the mortgage side, and we're going to have a mortgage loan officer here to talk in detail. But with FHA, you get in with a 580 credit score, 3.5% down. Your PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, is a little bit higher. But FHA is have lax credit guidelines. But the key to FHA, guys, if you have a student loan that you hadn't paid, it is not going to happen. And so you still have to be credit worthy, but you can get down to a 580 credit score. And we'll get more in the details, but Toni hit it, that FHA is a very big part of trying to make Houston affordable.
Absolutely.
Toni, one thing we were talking about tax credits, I kind of skipped over, and I'm sorry, Houston, I'm going to have to go back a little bit. Why can't a congressman or a state legislator or a city councilman stop affordable housing? And they are stopping affordable housing all over this city. And you, the public, don't know that your city councilman wouldn't allow you to live in certain neighborhoods, and they don't sign off. What is that going on, and what type of tax credit program that comes up?
The state of Texas actually has what I always tell people, the most heavily legislated QAP, and that's our Qualified Allocation Plan. Basically, think of that as the rules that govern the program. As I said earlier, every state gets their portion of tax credits, and then that state agency regulates how they are going to be put out there. But ours actually has a lot of legislation tied to it, and one of those things in that legislation says that our state reps get to write a letter. Now, some years ago, the state senators said, hey, we don't want any part of this. We don't know real estate. We don't know housing. And so we don't want to be in a position of having to say this will or won't happen. But we have some state reps out there that just just salivate at the bit when they get that chance to kill a deal, and that's very unfortunate. And and so
it's affecting you, Houston.
It's absolutely affecting you. And so I would be, I would not be doing my job if I did not, even as we talk about housing, remind everyone of the importance of voting.
Right.
Because what happens is so many of these, representatives, these state reps, even these city council members, they think that you don't count because they look at the polls and they say, no one's even coming out in that precinct. Right. So I don't have to give that precinct something back.
Right.
And so even though it's in their district, they look at that precinct and say, they don't care. I can do something without them even knowing it or paying attention. And that happens. And so we have, deals that are in neighborhoods that need to be revitalized, that need attention, that need growth, that need the funds that are going to other parts of the city, and more importantly, outside of our city, because of the way we have been pushing back on affordable housing.
Guys, one thing I want to share, me and Toni sat on the mayor's housing transition team here in Houston. And the last thing I want to tell you, it's over 40-some thousand people on vouchers.
Exactly. And the waiting list is incredible. I mean, Houston is one of those cities you hear about, Chicago, LA, New York, but Houston is also one of those cities when the Housing Authority opens up its waiting list for new Section 8 vouchers, they almost close it in like 15 minutes because thousands, tens of thousands of people show up and then are turned away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Guys, we brought you some inside information on what's happening in the real estate industry in regards to affordable housing here in the Houston area. I want to thank my guest, Toni Jackson, for coming in. I hope you've enjoyed this show. We're going to bring you inside information. We're going to talk about the real deal here on Inside Houston. And I just want to say thank you for watching tonight, and I'll see you next week.
Inside Houston, brought to you by the Welcome to Houston Merchant Marketing Association. For more information, visit welcometohoustonTexas.com. Do you want to be on Inside Houston? You got something to show and tell? Hey, give us a call, 713-300-9927.